Hey, what's going on? This is Kit Russell. If you want to have a successful career as an artist, an entrepreneur, or a creative, it's necessary for you to just think of yourself as your own media business. The future is in ownership, owning your content, distribution, and speaking to your fans when and how you want to. Every artist has to not only own their content, but also own their distribution and speak directly to their fans when and how they want to. In this episode, we're going to give you a few examples of who is successfully doing this and how you can start doing it yourself. If you find this episode helpful, please hit that subscribe button on Spotify or SoundCloud. And also tell one of your friends about Noisy Neighbors podcast and let them know that this is something that they should check out too.
It's good to follow up from last week's conversation talking about having a niche audience to actually going into what you can do with that niche audience. And one of the things that I know we usually talk about is how every artist should really be building themselves into more of a media company than not necessarily just being an artist. So being a little bit more well-rounded. So I figured today we can go into that a little bit more in depth. But also we should just start by giving some context about what we do. Because I think that's really important to the philosophy of this discussion that we're about to have. Really, one of the things that's valuable to us is the fact that the internet has become a level of freedom. It's been democratized in terms of who can create and who can put things out there. Because of that, we also have the opportunity, anyone can start to build an audience. And so I think a lot of people are just kind of struggling to navigate that. And so, it's really challenging to put together a plan and also a strategy for how that makes sense, which is really about what we focus on and do as noise companies. Cool. So wanted to start off. So what does it mean to be a media company?
Yeah, I think now in 2018, every company, most companies are focusing themselves as media companies in the sense that they're creating content, distributing content, and if they're not creating content, they're collecting content from their users to help distribute it. So they're having content generated from other users. They're creating their own content. They're focusing on all different types of media, written media, video, podcasts. So they have a variety of media. And you see it with Facebook. They had their transition of high focus on video. They collect content from their users and pivot that as a media company. They also are now producing their own shows. Same with YouTube, Netflix. A lot of these tech companies are switching to be media companies in the sense, and then artists are doing it well. So a lot of the big companies, just as they focus on content marketing and staying relevant, they're realizing they have to, in order to get customers, they have to provide value. And that value is in giving people content and helping guide them. So that's what everyone wants in this age. People want content, all types of content. So companies are realizing that and providing that. And in doing so, they're forming themselves as media companies. Now, media may not be their main driver or the way they profit, but it's something that they're providing in order to stay relevant and connect with their audience and customers.
Yeah, you brought up a good point about that being valuable. I was listening to actually another podcast and video earlier, and they were talking about what brand is delivering value, and if you're just kind of limited to what you deliver. You can do something like that where it's a little scarce, and we've talked about that a little bit before. But it's you gotta kind of have to continuously give people more value, and content is the way to give people value today.
Because essentially, it helps you build the relationship with your audience because there's tons of content out there, and in order to guide someone, help them make a sale, you have to connect with them and educate them, or in some sense, like if it's like Microsoft, for instance, they're doing content in terms of blog posts, ebooks, webinars, um, videos, all to educate their business customers and their consumer customers on why they need their product. And then in another sense, there's people, some like Gary Vee, he does media. And he's been doing media since back before he started like his Vayner media. He was doing it to help sell wine and connect and build a following that way and educate people on wine. So there's a lot of veins on why, but it's all about like delivering value and creating a connection with your audience. And then hopefully that allows you to either sell something or just build a loyal following where they keep checking for your content, and it keeps you relevant essentially.
Let's be real. The competition for people's attention is deep and crowded. Staying relevant nowadays means creating value beyond what your immediate product is. Distributing and creating your own content is the best way to deliver people value right this second. Big corporations are doing this to provide value to their customers, so why not take the same approach? As creatives, we build brands and sell products to people just like they do. This requires us to build a genuine connection, and engaging content is the best way to do it.
So you were starting to get into a little bit about why this is important for artists. So one of the things I was thinking about is that, the beauty of all that content creation and all the different avenues that you can go about actually creating content is the fact that you're not limited as a creative. I think people have always, especially artists, have always, after some point in time, you grow and you develop as a human being. You have different interests and you have different ways that you want to express yourself. So before, it was easy to kind of be boxed and labeled as I'm the rapper, drug dealer rapper, or, I'm the pop singer that's cute and innocent. But now where we want to speak out about something politically, and no one takes them seriously. But now people can really define themselves so that they're not locked and boxed in by consumers, labels, brands, or whatever. So I think that was one of the things that I wrote down, is that I think is really, really one of the most important things, is that you can take advantage of that now. You don't have to really convince somebody or get somebody to have you buy in, because you can start doing it today if you want it. You want to express yourself.
Yeah, I think when thinking about the topic, I think that was like definitely one of the biggest reasons why I felt it made sense for artists to think of themselves that way. I mean, they're already producing media. I mean, with music videos, with albums, they're already producing it. But a lot of artists are more creative than just music. Music is a lot of times one outlet. They have a ton of other ideas. And so this just allows them to tap into that. And going back to like things we said in the niche audience of, this allows you to be a more well-rounded person and dictate a bit how you're portrayed and how people see you. So I think it has a couple benefits for the artists themselves. And then I think another benefit, which we were getting at when the reason why it's important, or what does it mean, it's a way to catch people's attention in a crowded market. So I mentioned a lot of like big companies were doing it, and the reason was people are searching for content. Well, as an artist, there's a ton of artists out there. It's hard to stand out. This is just another way to help you stand out. And for me, like the things that catch my eye are when people are able to tell layered stories that lead into their music, and it just makes the music more engaging. This is an opportunity to create media around that, and just give more of yourself to your fans in a way that you see fit. You're not relying on interviews. You're not relying on other people shaping and framing how you're seen. You can take control of that yourself.
Yeah, that control is really crucial. And another thing about that is you have the opportunity to connect with the fans. Some people may not like that. Some people might like your music. I actually was just watching a Donald Glover stand-up show, and I completely forgot he did stand-up. Like, he's a comedian too. Some people may not have liked his acting, they may not have liked his music, but they love the stand-up. If you have that capability, you have that skill, or that's something that you're interested in, it's kind of like just go for it, or at least get it to the point and work on that as a craft as well. Like, why not? Life is too short to not do that. Then you have other people that can kind of appeal to you from like a kind of a marketing strategy. If you're trying to attract more fans, you have different groups of fans that you can attract, because people are also multifaceted. Like, humans are multifaceted. So they end up finding that you are also multifaceted and multi-leveled in terms of your creation. I think it just makes somebody more appealing overall, at least for me. That's the case.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then back to like that reaching different market segments. With like Donald Glover, like you mentioned, I think there's probably a decent number of people out there who may not enjoy his music, but they enjoy Atlanta, this TV show.
Yeah.
So they follow him for his acting career, and that might lead them to the music, and they may or may not like the music, but they're going to still follow another part of his career. So it just allows you to expand your base, and you can create different niches with each type of media that you're creating. So it does make you multifaceted, and it helps you hit that goal of like becoming big. But if you want to become big, you need to start small and targeted and build up that smaller following that's going to spread for you.
Being your own media company means fully expressing yourself the way that you want to. No creative wants to be put into a single box. We take inspiration from everything because we're curious. So why not show off all your various talents and the things that you're interested in? Humans are multifaceted, and we express ourselves in different ways. That's what makes you unique and different. You'll also be more relatable and also well-rounded as an artist, and this will help you have a stronger connection and also have a variety of fans. When it comes to creating content, don't think of it as a chore. Get creative and tell a layered story that shows your perspective and your view of the world.
And so another thing I was thinking about too was just ownership. So that's, it's easier than ever to really control and own your own media, which is kind of like you were saying, that you can really control the narrative. What do you think are some benefits to that, of just having, people talk about, hey, I'm an independent artist, and, obviously the financial gain of owning the rights, but what do you think are kind of some other perks to really owning your content and the stuff that you're putting out there as a media company or a media entity?
I think the first one that comes to mind definitely is control. You're controlling your message. You're controlling how you're perceived, what you want to say. You don't have to make certain compromises in that sense that may take away from your artistry. So you're controlling your happiness and creativity in that sense. I think another one is more revenue streams. There's only so much money you're going to make from streaming. So the more revenue streams you can build through content creation and through media, it gives you more revenue streams in terms of partnerships, in terms of merch, in terms of those clicks and views. So, and then all that money you can put back into growing your career. Leverage and partnerships that arise, leverage and negotiations as you do shows, or even if a label comes around, it'll give you leverage to get better terms on that deal. If you think that deal is necessary and you want to give up, you may not have to give up so much ownership, or you'll get better terms, so you can start dictating terms. So it just gives you control and puts you in the driver's seat a bit more, and more options on how you can take your career.
Yeah, for sure. It also just gives you a better relationship with your fans too. You can speak directly to them whenever you want. It's kind of a perk that you can just wake up one day and hop on a Snapchat and tell a certain story to them. Maybe you create your own thing that's a weekly thing where you engage with them. You give them something funny or something good to be excited about. But like you said, it's definitely more lucrative. You know, you can definitely have that specific audience and target to that audience and also serve that audience. So
Yeah, I think that is a definitely a big one, especially for growing your career. Just the ability to access more resources and take your career whatever direction you want to take it. Like I think in our like branding courses, our books, one thing we mentioned is having like your brand be your anchor and it be like strong and solid, but also be flexible. And this just gives you that flexibility and that solid foundation to springboard off of.
yeah. So actually talk a little bit about that flexibility. Like what's kind of some good examples of people that you've seen do that?
Yeah, so we mentioned Childish Gambino. That's just a easy one to hit. He has right now. He has like the flexibility to take his career wherever he wants. Rumor is that this next album is his last one, and it's fine because there's other endeavors for him to go to. Probably in his case, more TV and movies. But then you have Action Bronson, and you have his music, but then his career has fluctuated a bit, where when he's not released, when there's been times where his music's been slow, or he's been able to fall back on the different TV shows he's had. So Fuck That's Delicious. He had the other show with Vice where it was basically like a really bizarre out there late night show. He had that short like Ancient Aliens show. He's been able to put out cookbooks. He's been doing painting, so he's been able to like leverage a lot of different opportunities and outlets to direct where his career is. So if one slows down, he can fall back on the other one. He can transition interests. He can take time to build up inspiration and for the music as well, and not have to worry about, not feel the pressure of, okay, I'm going to lose my connection with my fans if I don't have music out right away, because he can go to a different outlet. Tyler, the Creator, I think is a good one. I think he has a podcast. When Odd Future was like at their peak, they had that TV show that they were able to put out with Adult Swim.
Oh yeah.
So he's been able to like do a bunch of other different things. And then there's this artist, her name's I Am DBB. If you check her YouTube channel, what she does is like mini documentaries. And I think she has like 9 different ones on there to go along with like music videos and other things. So she's giving you like a look into her life and her career as an artist and what it's like to be on tour, different things she's getting into, all in like a documentary, and the new perspective and new insight into her.
Oh, that's really cool. Wait, so with her, she's basically documenting her journey and everything that she's doing?
I haven't spent too much time looking into it, but it was all like mini, like pretty short documentaries that looked interesting. So let's see what she has. Yeah, she has 48 Hours with I Am DBB, unscripted live interview with poet, unscripted episode 9, Japan, unscripted episode 7, Manchester, unscripted doc, female wellness. So she's making these videos that are important to her, documenting her journey and showing like more aspects of herself. So it's pretty cool. It's just another way to do it. Then there's also her music videos, which are obviously super popular as well.
Yeah, I think like the Action Bronson one is such a great example of just somebody that has so many, he just really focused on his own personality. And that's kind of, let's use him kind of as an example of, I was curious about how do you start doing this? Like, I think it's good to help, our audience know how do they start being a lifestyle brand is what we want to call it, of someone that can really holistically represent a way of living through all these different ways of delivering content. And it's kind of like how like Fox or CNN or any type of special channel you're thinking about, or Comedy Central, you know what you're turning into. But when when you're tuning into the Action Bronson channel, you know for sure, no matter what he's doing, if he's cooking, if he's smoking a joint, if he's rapping, freestyling, you know it's coming from his world and his identity. And I think that's really crucial. Like, music is just a piece of it, and it's not to diminish anything as artists, as musicians, or painters, or whatever they do. That's just one aspect of it. And one of the things that we always talk about is people just having an anchor. Music might be your strongest suit, or something that kind of gets noticed sooner, and that can be your anchor, and you kind of build upon it. Goes back to what you were saying earlier about layers. You can build upon that and add layers to your story, add layers to your art, and what people can really experience from you. And that's why I've been such a fan of Action Bronson for years. I think, and sometimes I probably am more familiar with him and his things. Like, I love his music and I listen to it, but I still don't sit with an album for a long period of time. Like, I don't always go back to him. Like, I haven't gone back to Mr. Wonderful from 2015 in a while. But, I still watch numerous scenes from Fuck That's Delicious. And that's just them going around, traveling the world because they like to travel, but also eating food and giving stories. He's basically like Anthony Bourdain, but
Yeah.
his homies going around and going over to different places. And there's I think they're from Queens or something like that. They're so, that is just, it's hilarious. It's kind of ironic to have them out there doing whatever they're doing, and they always make friends.
Yeah, definitely. And so, like, the craziest things with Bronson is I remember when he put out Dr. Lecter. That was when I found him. I think it was like 2011 or something, maybe a little bit before that.
Mm-hmm.
So I found like Dr. Lecter. So I was on YouTube looking him up, and I started coming across like videos of him cooking. And it was like a friend videotape, and his friend was doing like a series on him. And it was usually he was in the restaurant he worked at, and it was like a short, like 4 or 5 episode series. And each time he was like cooking another dish and like letting his personality shine. And they were putting those up. And so, like, he's always been, since the beginning, putting out like different forms of media. And then before he had his own show, people would interview him, and his interviews would be like, all right, come over to my apartment. I'm going to cook this thing, or we're going to go grocery shopping, or whatever. So it's always been like, the food has always been so important to him. He's always incorporated it into the story. I mean, you hear it in his raps, but then it's also been like other content related to that may not be as music focused. Like, those cooking videos if you saw those, you would have no idea he was a rapper. I don't think he even mentions his music in them. It's like him. Yeah, it had nothing to do with his rap career, but it added a layer of personality. You got to see him. You got to understand like what was important to him. And even if I checked out his music and didn't like it, I could have still like known he was like into food and seen if he was going to put out more food content.
So no one wants to compromise their artistry. Owning your own media is really about having your own voice and controlling your message. It also gives you leverage and flexibility to do whatever you want. When you're in a creative drought with one outlet, pivot to another one. Figure out another way to entertain and keep people's attention. Ownership really, at the end of the day, gives you more opportunities to make money on your own terms. And isn't that what we all want? To be able to reinvest money back into our art so that we can do what we love?
And to answer the question of like, how do you get started? You just find something you're passionate about that's a creative outlet as well, and document it and be yourself and be authentic to it and put it out there. I think the key to getting started is just start doing.
Yeah, and actually the next thing I was going to talk about is like how, he's a good example because he's a personality. Not to say everyone doesn't have a personality. Somebody may not be as much of a character as he is, or may not recognize how to express himself as a character. Might be a little more introverted, where he might be, he's a little bit more comical with it. I was thinking it's like you got to kind of start by asking certain questions yourself, like understanding, like think about your personal identity, your life and your history and everything you've kind of done throughout your life, or other interests you've taken part in, or your creative and cultural passion. So stuff that you truly care about, communities that you're a part of.
Yeah.
It's always good to know kind of the subcultures. Like with Bronson, you can kind of point at the subcultures. Like he was a professional chef, so he was a part of that world. He was a part of the world of chefs and things that they care about. And so like you'll notice that even though his show, Fuck That's Delicious is kind of comical and it seems ironic, like he knows what he's talking about. Like he meets up with people that are chefs in France or people that are chefs in Thailand and starts talking technique with them and going through the details. Like it's just basically where he nerds out at. So I think it's really important for people to just understand what do you nerd out about? And if you have multiple areas of things that you geek out and feel naturally talking about on a regular basis, then by all means snatch that up. Like, I think that's really what's good. And that's why Odd Future, Tyler the Creator were like that too. Because they love skating, they love rapping, they just brought all those worlds together. It was effortless. And they probably weren't even thinking from this perspective of like, this is how I'm about to go about it. And probably Action Bronson either. But he had the right people on his team pointing those things out and knowing creatively where to share that information and where to tell that story beyond the music.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're like a bit more reserved, you're not a natural personality, you can definitely be methodical about it. And there's probably stories you want to tell and bring to life, and you just fall back on those or like have it relate to your music and add layers to the music, as we mentioned. But I think the other easy way, even if you're a bit more reserved, is find something you're passionate about. That doesn't have to be music; it can be, but just find something you're passionate about. Dive into that, because there's always something very captivating about watching someone be passionate about something and bringing that to life. So even if you're not like the most out there or the biggest personality, if you can show people what you're passionate about and bring them into that world and that environment, there's something captivating about that as well, and they'll feel that authenticity and definitely enjoy it. So I think there's the two ways to start. Find something you're passionate about that you want to show more of, bring people into that world, or be methodical, plan out your stories that you want to tell, figure out where it fits into how it relates to your identity, and bring those to life. So, I mean, I'm sure there's numerous ways to go about it, but those are, I think, two good starting points.
So what would be your advice for somebody trying to consistently tell a connected story, using their brand and using all the different mediums and like really identifying, like how do you even decide where to go with all the different areas where you can connect with fans and talk with them? Like I think even every business has that same issue. Like, do I use every platform, or do I also have every type of form of media? Like, how do you go about consistently telling that connected story?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing I always recommend for artists is like invest in the ones you yourself enjoy using. So invest in the platforms you enjoy using the most. If you don't enjoy making something or using a platform, you're not going to stick with it. So that's the big one. You could also look at data and find out where your fans actually live online to see where you should be investing your time and resources. So you could either take the more data focused approach, or you can go like with your gut. I enjoy using this platform. This is where my content's going to be, and have your fans migrate there. I think the big thing is telling your fans what to expect and where to find things, and making it easy for them to find. So if you're doing everything on YouTube, use the other social media channels to direct people back to that YouTube channel. For instance, like you might not be super active on there, but you can direct them to where you are active. That doesn't take a lot of effort. So I think that's definitely like one way. Get people to where you want to live, where you want to invest your time. How do I tell that story across mediums? So this is where I think people have to get creative and understand how the mediums work best. get creative with your storytelling, understand what medium works best for what, and how you can bring them all together and drive people to that next story. I don't think there's a programmatic or like one way to do it.
Yeah, I feel like you can, like when we say creatively, it's like, all right, you have the story that's being told, and that might, it's like thinking the process through. It might be the album has a plot, you know, it's got different chapters to it, or it's got different layers. But like, what about that? Can you turn that into like a trailer or something like that? Beyond, like maybe you like books, you like comic books, and you pull out parts of the, you know, a song and break it down lyrically, and the lyrics are turned into a comic book. So I think it's kind of repurposing content is one of the best and easiest ways to think about it, because it's playing with form, and that's what every art form really does, is playing with form to express something. So if you know, an album there's a lot going on in the music in that full album or mixtape that you put together. So there's ways that you can kind of pull from that to engage people otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. Playing with form is definitely the biggest one. And then I think, like I mentioned, like understanding what works best on different mediums to go along with like playing with form is definitely key. So using like Instagram to tell one part of the story because it's super visual, and then maybe using Twitter to tell another part of the story. And you have the audio and the music, and then with like YouTube or whatever with video, you're converging all the different forms. So I think, and it gives people a piece here, a piece there. How you interact with it can dictate your experience. Basically, you want to create it to where people have more to find as they dive deeper. I think that's the most fun way for fans as well. And it's probably fun for the artists too, as they can get creative and how they're communicating.
Yeah, you hide a bunch of Easter eggs for people, and they can kind of follow the plot along and discover what's new and what are the next steps to all of it. So I was also going to say too that I think it's good for people to not just play with form, but also serve that community that they're serving in a different way. So like we talked about Action Bronson, he might want to connect with people, the food community. Best way to connect with them may not be his music. You know, they may not all be fans of all of that. So he's like, hey, I'm going to have a show because it's solely about the food. So I think kind of segmenting that too. And once you kind of identify your passions and interests, which we were talking about, and the subculture that you're working with, like what's popular in that subculture? Because that'll really easily dictate. You might look up and be like, hey, for some reason, the subculture that I'm a part of is still on MySpace, something random like that. And they're some hipsters that only want to mess with MySpace or something like that. If that was the case, then you serve that market. You know, what do people like? What content do they enjoy the most on there? You know, Tumblr used to be something big back in the day. Like to me, that was very niche. Like if you were part of a Tumblr community, you were probably somebody that was more creative than the artist in and of itself anyway. So you found the people through that. You know, nowadays it's more video content does a lot better than video and visual content does a lot better than like blog content did back 10 years ago or so. So just kind of figure out what works for you and where those subcultures are.
Yeah, I think different platforms, different subcultures, I think that's definitely an important aspect, like respecting the subculture and being authentic to it and being genuine and shining a positive light and not just using it for your own personal gain is definitely an important aspect and something that people will appreciate. But on all these channels, like stay on top of like what communities they're also serving and how they want to serve. Like with Tumblr, like there's been the whole issue of one of the big communities on Tumblr was the sex worker community. And now Tumblr has taken away that platform from them. And now people pretty much feel like we've taken that away from them. Tumblr is going to cease to exist. Like that was their hub where they felt like they could express themselves, and then the platform pulled the plug on that for business reasons. But so also understand like who you're supporting, and if the platform you're using isn't respecting that culture, feel free to migrate away if necessary.
And what you're saying too is key, because you got to evolve with whatever the community you're a part of, because they're going to grow and they're going to develop and be doing other things. You know, as Jay-Z rapped about one thing in 2002, another thing in 1996, and he's rapping about something completely different in 2017 with 444, because his community and his culture of fans have grown. They're in a different mindset. They're in a different place. So, you evolve the content differently as things change, and also where people move to. And we might be moving onto a different platform and engaging them differently. So, and that's all just paying attention to your surroundings. And it should feel natural. I feel like if you're already involved in a part of these things, the idea should just be almost right in front of how to go about doing it. It's just another layer of really paying attention and getting creative with it. And so, really, if anyone that listens to this, I want them to just feel more empowered, not overwhelmed by everything that they have at their fingertips. It can be a lot of distracting things. Somebody's making an achievement here and has X amount of followers on this, it's on YouTube or whatever, but you could be doing better by finding exactly where you need to be and serving specifically those people. And so there's options out there. There's so many options out there. So any other kind of last minute tips or any kind of remaining things you want people to kind of part and walk away with?
I think the big one is I think one big one is understand your brand and how your brand connects into all of this, so that there's that brand consistency regardless of what you're doing. And then understand your fans and how this will appeal to them and how you can communicate what you're doing.
So what do you nerd out about? Being your own media company really means documenting and sharing what you care about. If you do that, then creating content will be natural and easy to do. It won't feel like work, but it will be valuable content that your audience will appreciate and love. The trick is to show what you're passionate about and bring your fans into your world, so that you can randomly do this at any moment, or you can plan it out however you want. The trick is to just be natural. If you can't decide what content to make and share, start with your community. What subculture or scene are you a part of? Begin documenting your life and the world around you.